Hey guys, it's Elena. Today I want to show you a tutorial for how to make dual color roses in Procreate. So that is where you have two different colors on the same paintbrush and you create a rose using this effect. And I will be using my dual color brushes for Procreate, which are available for sale in the link provided. That said, let's go ahead and get started. So let's make this canvas 10 by 8 inches. So the brushes that I will be using are my dual color brushes, and in particular the angled dynamic brushes, which are great for making roses. So my favorite of these is the Streaky Chisel Edge Dynamic 50/50. So the 50/50 means we have 50% of each color that we choose. And for this rose, I wanted to do a red rose. You can do any colors that you want. I've done some funny color ones that are really fun as well, like blue. But just for this tutorial, we're going to go ahead with red. So I wanted to choose from my blue, purple, red color palette that comes with the brushes, this red here. And then as my secondary color, I went to the disc. I'm going up to the two colors up here. Right now my red is my primary color. So I'm going to my other color here, and then I'm double tapping on the wheel by the black so that black is our secondary color. So now I'm tapping the red again to make sure that is the primary. So now I'm going to test the brush and make sure I have my Streaky Chisel Edge. I do. And I like that very much. But actually what I want to do is make the black the primary color. And that is because in order to make a petal and a rose that looks like it has shadows on the inside, it's always a good idea to keep the darker color on the inside of the rose so that it looks 3D and dimensional. So the black will be on the inside. So now I can make petals like so, and the bottom half of the petal is going to be the darker end of it. So in order to make the rose, I'm going to start out making just some petals all the way around in a circle. And you want to do is at least 4, but you can also do as many as you like. You can make it complex or not. So I'm just going to go ahead and start out and making this circle of petals as the first layer. I like to make my petals a little bit funny shape, not just this perfect shape. You can do yours in a perfect teardrop shape, or you can do some wiggles and change the size so that you have some big and some small. It's completely up to you. So I've made my first petal, and I'm going to make another one right next to it. I'm pushing on the pen and I'm wiggling, bringing it around so that the tip is meeting. So now I'm going to do another. And you know what? I think I'd like to do that one again because I want the color to come down on both sides. So I'm actually just going to start over here. So pushing on the screen, getting bigger, wiggling, and then I'm doing less pressure, and you can see that it comes down around and forms a petal if you let up on the pressure at the end, so it looks a lot more 3D that way. So now I'm going to make another petal, pushing in, wiggling over, letting up on the pressure. And I'm not really happy with how the end of that turned out, so I'll do it again. I think it's important that I keep these mess ups in here because I want you to see that I don't do it perfect every time, and it's absolutely fine to use this as a practice. You don't have to make every petal perfectly the first time. So here we go again. Letting up on the pressure, bringing it down. And it's okay if there's a little bit of space in the middle because we'll cover that up. But actually I wanted that one closer over here. I think I want this petal to be a little bit bigger than the others. So I tilted my brush a little bit so that it's got this really nice dimensional look to it. So now at this point, however many petals you've got at this point, the next layer is going to be petals that are kind of coming up in between the other petals that you've drawn. And you could do a separate layer for this. You could add a layer here. Maybe I'll just do that. So each amount of petals I'm just going to do on a separate layer. We'll see how that goes. I'm not going to change the size just yet, but I might in a moment. So starting over on the side here, I'm not pushing as hard so that the petals are not as big as the first layer. That was too small though. Let's go again. I'm happy with that. And we'll just make 4 more just like that. I'm just kind of embracing the irregularity here. I'm not trying to make a perfect rose. I just want to have a rose that's kind of open looking and like it's not brand new rosebud. And this is where we're going to cover up these bits here that are showing through. Okay, so now we've got that, and now I'm going to make the brush a little bit smaller. I'm going to make another layer and do the same thing again. And you'll notice that I'm turning the page as I go. And I just find that easier than trying to change the angle of my pencil all the time. So that is what I do. It's not what you have to do, but it's just what I find easiest. Now I'm kind of losing track of where I'm at, so I'm just going to look at my layers, and I see that I've not got a little petal over here. So I'm going to add one there. And now I think I'd like to do one more layer of little petals. You can do as many layers as you want. It's completely up to you. So let's make that brush a little bit smaller. And keep going. And I'm just going to do one more with just a couple, not going to go all the way around this time, but I just have a couple areas where I feel like a little petal might be useful, like that. Okay, so now the fun part. We are going to make the rosebud for the middle. So this part is, even if you've done all the rest of this all in the same layer, I definitely recommend doing this part in its own layer, because then you can use the manipulation techniques that you can use in Procreate, the distort, in order to make it fit just right. So that's a nice little trick that we have when we're doing this sort of work digitally instead of with paint. So we're going to switch brushes for the rosebud. We're going to switch to the angled static version of the one that we've been using. This one's called Streaky Chisel Edge Static 50/50, whereas the one we've been using is dynamic. So this one that we've been using is really good for petals because the amount of pressure you use determines how big the stroke is. However, if we're trying to make a cute little perfect rosebud, it's kind of difficult to do that with a brush that's constantly changing size. So the static version will stay the same size, which is helpful. So I'm not going to draw it on top of the rose. We're going to do it over here, and then we're going to move it to the middle. So I'm just kind of eyeballing this to see about how big I want it. And I will start out by going straight up and slowly over and back, and then holding. And you can see ellipse created, that this has popped into a perfect semicircle. And so let's just do that again, because I actually wanted to show you how you can manipulate that. So it popped into place. You can actually change it by moving it around if you want to. Okay, so that's the top part of the rosebud. Now I'm going to make the bottom part, and it can be a little bit tricky to line your pencil up perfectly with this edge here. So don't worry if it takes a couple of tries. See there, I had not quite lined up. Okay, so now I'm following it around and then going very slowly into a little curlicue in the middle. And I don't want to hold that to make a quick shape, because then it's going to go really funny. So now we have this little rosebud, and what we're going to do on the sides of it just a little bit is we're going to take the dynamic version of this brush again, the Streaky Chisel Edge Dynamic 50/50. So that's the one that we made all the petals with. Gonna make it quite small, and we're gonna just do some little sideways petals on either side of this. So I'm just gonna start by going kind of sideways and then turning so that it looks like a petal sort of coming off of that. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. There we go. So now the fun part is we're going to go to the arrow, which is the move tool. And over here, we have distort. And so, well, first, actually, before we do that, let's go back to freeform and move it to the middle. And I just love how that kind of magically pops in there. But you can see that we have a bit of a problem because the perspective is off. So now we can go to distort and start moving these corners until it feels like this fits into the space. So this is obviously something that you would not have in real life, but I think it just enhances the experience a little bit because you can make some really cool looking roses this way. So I'm gonna let that go and have a look. And I like it, but I feel like it's kind of sitting on top. It probably should be about there. So I'm going back to the arrow tool, back to freeform. Let's move that over here. You can also rotate it and just kind of try out how you think it's going to look best. And I think I like it there. I feel like I could use another petal kind of behind it. So I'm going to add a new layer, go underneath of that, and just checking that I have my dynamic brush selected. I'm just going to go up here and see what sort of petal I can add behind it. Oops. And I like that a little bit better than what was there. So I'm just kind of making a little nest for the rose by making petals behind it like this. I'm just going to see how it looks if I try to do one here as well. I'm going to do it like this. Nope. Okay. I'll just do one more petal in front of it as well. Right here, we've got a bit of an issue. I'm gonna make that quite small. Oh, that's not small enough. Okay, maybe a little bit here as well. So I'm just using the sideways motion again. All right, I think that is working as a rose. So now we're gonna want some leaves behind it. So I think I'll just group all of these together and name that rose. So now we've got that all in one little bundle there. So I'm adding a new layer. Let's put that below the rose and rename that leaves. So for the leaves, let's choose some different colors, of course. The color palette that comes with the brush set is called Dual Color Greenery. So from this set, from this palette, I wanted to choose a light and a dark green. So this is my dark green right here. Now I'm gonna select that secondary color and choose a light green. And I think I'm gonna go with that one. And let's use a different brush. Let's go for our smudgy brush. Smudgy Chisel Edge Dynamic 50/50. If I could have made these names any shorter, I would have. There were so many factors to think about, so I wanted to make the names really clear. So I hope you guys don't mind long named brushes. So first, before we put the leaves back there, I'm just gonna do a little practice, because if it turns out well, I can always move it over there. I'm gonna make that brush all the way to the top so we have some nice big leaves. So I'm kind of pointing down towards the end of the screen because the stroke's then gonna go that way. And I'm just gonna pull up. And I like that color combination quite a lot, but I'm gonna make the leaf have these points on it like a rose leaf would have. So I'm just doing wiggles into a point at the top and then turning, doing the same thing on the way down. And I'm not super happy with how that edge turned out. I'm just gonna put it behind here and see how I feel about it. I think I'm gonna wanna try again. I'm just gonna make a new layer and let's go for this again. So I think I like that a little bit better than the leaf that I made first there. So I'm just going to give that a try. I think I can use both of them actually. I'm just gonna put that one there and I'm gonna move, oops, turn that one back on and move it over here. Maybe flip it a bit. Okay, I think that looks all right. I'm just gonna manipulate this one again. Just gonna keep on going. Just kind of tweaking things to see how it looks best. I think I'm actually gonna just keep messing with the leaves a bit here because I feel like they should be pointed in the same direction as the rosebud. Okay, I think I am happy with that. So thank you so much for watching. This is something that you can practice with all kinds of different colors, different patterns, lots of petals, not as many petals, really roughly petals, really perfect petals. There's so many variations that you can do. So I hope that you have fun with this concept. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.